Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's Wrong with the Podcast. Today, we have the great pleasure of speaking with Matteo Norris. At the age of 17, Matteo traded a career as a professional cyclist for higher education, after which he pursued a BA degree in international business in Manchester. Afterwards, Matteo moved to Guatemala as a consequence of a typically unpredictable life twist, providing him the opportunity to engage with cross-cultural projects in both the profit and nonprofit sector. After his time in Guatemala, the desire to drive change dynamics within organizations brought Matteo first to Tanzania and then to India, returning back to the UK after several years. Now, Matteo is working at Wasp, a 3D printing architecture firm with the aim to build zero-mile homes, using materials found in the surrounding area, where he leads the implementation of digital tools to empower and connect multiple teams by strengthening as a first customer mentality from a business point of view. Matteo is also responsible for generating and monitoring international sales growth and supports the management team in their research to create the solid organizational structure necessary to support the downsizing of processes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. Today, we have the great pleasure of speaking with Matteo Norris. Matteo is with World's Advanced Saving Project. Matteo, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me here today, and thanks to you all listening today.
Well, thank you for being here. We're excited for this conversation. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background to our audience.
Sure. So today I'm talking to you from our office here in Massa Lombarda. We are based in the central of Italy, near Bologna. I was born and raised here in Italy, somewhere else in Genova. I studied business, and actually I came into this field not so long ago, about 9 months ago. And my background is mostly in NGOs and kind of like development work. So yeah, I came here because of some specific alignment with the development they wanted to make inside the company in terms of digitalization and adoption of new tools. But the whole industry was pretty new to me. Yeah.
And what is your experience in the industry so far, I guess?
Has been amazing. I had the chance to participate to the most important show for this industry, which is For Next, and it's held in Frankfurt every November. That is the place where anybody who has to do with additive manufacturing will be heading at any scale or size or whatever is their role in this kind of like value chain. They will be there. So that was amazing and gave me a really a bigger picture of who are the people and what are the purposes and the development in the field. But I guess the most important aspect for the benefit in my experience was the values and the people that are around Wasp at all times. So like as usual, the people are the one that really shape your experience, right? And here at Wasp, I have to say that I founded people where there was a very strong alignment in terms of vision, in terms of values, and also age-wise. It's a pretty young group.
Yes. No, we're following Wasp's I guess projects very enthusiastically. I think it's very exciting and promising for the future too. So can you please tell us a bit more about Wasp's background, and then we can talk about a little bit maybe what problems is Wasp trying to address in today's field?
Sure. So Wasp is it's a company that was born out of the imagination of Massimo Moretti. Massimo Moretti is the founder, and is still our kind of like a visionary director. The Francesca Moretti is our kind of manager at the moment, but is still here, like making sure that everybody is embedded in his vision and in the values of the company. He has been an inventor and entrepreneur all his life in different fields, but he has a strong background in electronics. And around 2012, he started to get passionate about kind of additive manufacturing. It was the time where the first tabletop machine were coming. And he has told me that he spent quite an important amount of money at the time to purchase one. And then from that moment, he was like, I can make one too. And he started to build one, which we have here. It's called actually it's called the cupcake. It's made of wood, and it was the prototype for where we came today. As a company, I mean, he set out on this trip and his venture, really with the aim of with a very specific aim, which is that of being able to have a positive role in fulfilling people's needs and in finding some solution to some unanswered needs of people, especially that are living in condition or situation of disadvantage. In particular, the initial kind of like aim was that of being able to have an impact in the housing crisis and being able to find both a technical and software and a digital solution for that through additive manufacturing. Along the path, definitely that was kind of the apex of the research. So along the path, we had to start from very small machines that were working with very different materials. But that left us with a catalog of machines that we have today, which actually allow us to have an impact in the wider range of needs that humans have, starting from food, from energy, to work creations, health, and then now since 2018 we are equipped with Crane Wasp, which is the hardware, the tool, the printer that allow us to have also something to say in the architectural field. Yeah, so that's where we are right now, and it's very exciting because the hardware is really here now. It's something we are using often. We are starting to have international projects that involve us and the use of the technology. We have the first research center using it, so it's all very exciting.
Yeah, I think the future potential is, well, it addresses so many of issues today, right? Like both scalability, access, use of natural materials. And I know Wasp is also exploring that in additive manufacturing, which has been so far like a lot of like plastic usage, but like now incorporating much more natural materials, and therefore bringing in so much more efficiency just to like production and construction process, really. We already see tremendous benefit of it in rapid prototyping and, let's say, product design. But I'm also very, very excited about the potential for architecture in the future. And we see like a few projects that you did, one pop-up store with like Dior. And of course, we need these kind of, I guess, star or huge press projects in order to get like attract more attention and bring more awareness to even the capability to be able to really recognize the overall mission of the company in the long run. So what do you see in the architectural space that's happening today at Wasp or collaboratively in the industry, and what potential it might enable for the future?
Well, there is a lot of potential, and we have to be thankful to for those that are believing in this early stage of development of the technology. So clearly, our collaboration, for example, with Dior, was something that allow us to do a lot of steps in the development of the tool, but especially of the processes that go around the tool. As we know, the early stages of any technology are very expensive because they require a lot of energy efforts to deploy. And so when we look at that project, yeah, clearly it's something that allow us to have a lot of international recognitions and space, but especially it allows us to achieve some research objective that might not be so exposed out there, but are essential for us to progress. And especially in that case, was that of being able to remotely kind of monitor and control the construction site from Italy. And so for us, that was fundamental. On a broader trying to have like a broader picture of the situation, definitely there is a lot of excitement surrounding 3D printing in the architectural and construction field. There are two main, three sources of interest, or we can categorize the interest in three main areas. There are people that come to 3D printing because they're interested in the design potential and innovation in the design of the shapes and structures. We are talking about kind of like Yes, I guess when we try to paint a picture of what is the current interest from the architecture field towards 3D printing, I think we can think about three main areas. One is those people or companies, professionals that are interested in the design innovation that 3D printing can allow in the architectural field. So they're interested in bringing the more organic shapes and organic shapes into architecture, and that is definitely something that is already happening, and it's a source of major excitement for the whole industry. Another one is the integration of new materials in the building. So there are architects and projects that are, whose main objective is that of being able to use some innovative material in contexts that was never possible before. And then we had a third group of people, broadly, that are interested in the reducing the ecological impact of their project, right? So they don't necessarily aim for an incredible or eye-catching structure or design. They are not necessarily aiming to use an innovative or new material, but they are really interested in measuring the ecological impact of their work and seeing the impact being lower and better overall.
Yeah, although like I think, going back to the Dior project, you brought in all three aspects in that. It was very much design savvy, and in sort of in brand with Dior's, I guess, brand identity, and then also incorporated new materials in 3D printing, as well as being environmentally conscious. So I think that was like very exciting for us to see, because and it's great to also see brands kind of supporting, as you said, these like early stage efforts to bring awareness to it, and I guess enable more funding towards it too, because especially in the real estate industry, we see that unlike the automotive industry, for example, we're very quick to slam prototypes down, like say, oh, it's expensive, oh, that will never work, oh, like we don't have any material on that, oh, what about this? It's not the real estate industry does not have the same mindset as the tech industry, so to speak. So I really see, the 3D printing field and what you do can kind of bring those worlds together, and therefore bring the mindset of the tech industry to more into real estate, being more open to try new things, explore new materials, forms, and therefore enabling reducing our footprint altogether. I mean, what you're talking about in terms of even being able to construct remotely, that's huge, right? That's in itself is so much more efficient than our current system. And on top of that, you're talking about environmentally friendly materials, as well as just like better efficiency in the site, so that it's much quicker, as well as it has much less, I guess, noise pollution, environmental pollution, like everything that you can think of that comes with a construction site. So I think we're at an early stage that we can't even quantify the benefits yet, but we already see that they're there. What are some strategies that Wasp has in order to be able to track the benefits and really the solutions that it's bringing into the current, I guess, industries?
So definitely, I think you code on a very important point. On our side, we see the possibility of impacting in different ways. One is definitely that of developing a tool that, instead of being overly sophisticated or answering just the needs or the calls of the construction industry, cement industry, or the real large construction companies, wants to create an opportunity for those that are not yet asking for a 3D printer or to participate in this industry. So we are really trying to develop a tool that might be interesting or thought-provoking for for very different type of companies that might be in places around the world where additive manufacturing might not be yet part of the conversation. So we want to be, we will be able to measure our impact in that sense. So the involvement of people that are not big players in this industry, we want to make it more playing field. Yes. Then I guess what we are trying to do is that we create machines that are we come from the open source mindset. So we don't want to create a tool that then lock people or customers or companies to us for the use, for the fitting, for the materials that to be used with these machines. So in the industry, this one, but also in many others, usually somebody wants to sells you the hardware, which at times is not even anymore the source of the income for the company, but then they want to sell you all the other services and softwares and tools that can be used on that hardware. On our side, instead, the interest is really that of being able to get the machine to people like in any part of the world, especially, as I said, in places where other players would not go and play or knock on doors, and then allow people that do not have as a base the kind of background that would normally allow people to participate in this. So very skilled in digital design, engineering, and modern architecture, but allow them to develop, to kind of implement very advanced project thanks to our remote support. So we want to give them a machine that where for potentially they could be able to just access a library of file that will be open from us on our website, and just download a file wherever they are. So as long as they're able to mount the machine, they could just download the file, which could be a summary of very high or of a large amount of knowledge. Let's say there is no high knowledge, there's just a large amount of knowledge, and they could benefit from it. So our measuring the results of our work will be in that sense, seeing how far we can spread the know-how far into the world, let's say.
I think what's really fascinating is that, and you talk about, which is so true, generally there are like a few big players who innovate in the space, and usually it comes with a big price tag too, right? So like if you want to be sustainable consumer, for example, the machinery that you're getting is generally double the price, right? If not more. But you're also enabling this like overarching system where these big players could actually support or endorse projects without having to like set up a massive infrastructure at a site, but maybe even through, and it's interesting that you have nonprofit background, but even through like nonprofit support, I can definitely see collaboration with nonprofits and these like, I guess, big players kind of being the sponsors on these projects in order to be able to respond to even crisis with your remote support, right? It kind of is, suddenly it becomes a system where a local team of, I guess, project managers, plus you guys, plus a donor or sponsor who can be anywhere in the world, really collaborating at a site that has an urgent need. So that potential is amazing, and it's really in order, like it would be amazing to see like how this could like scale too, as it has the potential to do so. So I guess with that, and like seeing the potential, and not only bringing like enabling design innovation and kind of like empowering the research around new materials. In terms of like really like crisis response or urgency needs around like housing or shelter, what is a timeline? Well, maybe not at the present, but in the future that you're targeting, like if we were to print homes or shelters or quick hospitals, right? Like the pandemic was a great case example where we were short of space. Like in New York, they turned the entire Javits Center into a temporary hospital. how quick can you envision the turnaround would be if we needed to just print our spaces as we needed?
Interesting, very interesting question. There are different elements to that can help us to kind of calculate or estimate the time. There is definitely a part that is onto the administration, the government, in aligning their construction codes and the construction's kind of requirements to this new technology and to the new materials. So we are playing with a new tool and we are doing with new materials. So we need the governments and the laws to start to integrate these innovations into their codes, and that will happen as universities start to work with our machines, this kind of material. They start to produce literature about it, and so the government can kind of piggyback from this research the university will do. In a more practical sense, I guess the tool is there. So the tool is already ready for deployment. What has to happen is that we definitely that the implementation has to be kind of in steps. So first we did project where we were the designers, implementer, and the people on the construction site. And that was, for example, Tekla and Gaia. We did it in-house and we controlled everything. Then we moved on projects where we collaborated on the design. We had a mixed team on the field for the construction, and we only had kind of like a remote support from engineers. And that was the case, for example, of the OR project. Now what we will do is that we will participate in some project that are actually in the horizon, in the kind of like 12 to 18 months kind of horizon. We do have projects in collaboration potentially with organizations that come from the nonprofit or development area. And we will act in this way. We will kind of go in the field with them. We will work on a project where we will design a print recipe, so kind of the design a material mix that is locally sourced together with them. We will train a local team on the use of the machine. So we will go, just pass them beyond just a pure assist us on the field, but like give them a full training on how to use the machine. Do the project with them. So we will have 1 or 2 people on site, have them kind of like have the main role in the project, have our engineers assist them remotely through the internet, where they push the file and control the machine kind of datas and the datas of coming from the machine. And then what we will do is that we will leave the machine with them. They will be trained, and we expect them to go out and find for themselves kind of location, identify a location, identify any changes to the material mix if it's necessary, indicate a design from the library, or propose changes to the existing one if they identify there are needs to be met through design changes, and then implement it. Once we pass this step, so we understand that somebody can be trained and go out and work, we could see that large NGOs, for example, come out to us, get a hold of one of these tools, because in the end it's just a tool, bring it to their center, have their research and development team participate, because the very large NGOs do have people who do some preparation and study in order to be operational when a disaster or an emergency comes in. And if they will be they will have completed their preparation, so they will have developed the file that is good for them, the deployment strategy that is good for them, the logistics that is good for them, then they will be able to answer to an emergency using our tool. Our tool cannot be dropped in the middle of an emergency and be used by somebody that has no idea. There has still to be some kind of coordination in order to have it in the field and working. So I mean, kind of talking about trying to put in a time scale what we said. I think it could be maybe 2-3 years before somebody is actually doing this in the field, in a real in a real emergency scenario, I would say.
But so I definitely understand that, and it's no different than really like a onboarding process for a corporation when you bring in a new software that you customize with the client and then adapt it to their needs and train in-house team to be able to use it, and then you only do like remote consulting as needed, right? So it's very similar to that. So I think it makes a lot of sense when you say that large NGOs or corporations that have foundations, they can actually invest in this ahead of time to have that in-house capability through collaboration with you in order to be able to respond in the future. So once this like training happens, and you're envisioning like 2 to 3 years there, what is the printing like once everything is set and we're like it's action, right? How long do you see like the printing could take, or do we like have potential to become very fast in the future?
I mean, speed when it comes to 3D printing is not just a mechanical factor, and mechanically it could become very fast because it's just a matter of like increasing the engine size and make it move faster. But there is the part that is that the speed is determined by the material you're using and their properties and their ability to adhere correctly when they're deposed. So when we're talking about the architecture 3D printing, we are kind of deposing very large chunks of materials, like pretty thick layers of materials. Let's talk about concrete to have something that everybody can have in mind. When you depose concrete is not really solid, or it's pretty fluffy, let's say, or soft. And so like if you were to go very fast with your printing, means that probably you will be back deposing the second layer pretty fast. But if you come back too fast to that point where you depose the first layer, it might be the material below is not ready to receive weight on top of it. So the speed can increase only not only because the machine gets faster, but because new materials are developed. I think that of course it's going to be a never-ending process. Like there is always research and new innovation comes in. But at the moment, there are some limits. Like we are not searching for speed when we approach a new project. Speed is not necessarily the thing, because the speed is also determined by the amount of properties that you want to input into a design. So in a wall infill, that will determine how well the wall kind of performs against the heating, cooling, and out, the exterior kind of things. To just give you some reference, I guess, for example, we already printed something in Germany by art installation. Actually, it was a very small module, about 9 square meters. It was the simplest thing ever. So I could imagine that could be kind of like the shelter, only a shelter, and that it took about 50 hours to print. However, it might have taken the same time or a little less, but it might have taken still like a day to set up the machine and disinstall it from the location where we printed. So what we are also looking into is that what could happen in those situations is that you go to an area where you need to deploy this kind of housing, but instead of moving the printer to each single place where you want to have a shelter built, you will have the shelter built in kind of like modules. So you will have like a printing area within a deployment area, and you will have these pieces printed there and then move maybe 100 meters away. And in this way, you could kind of like cut on the installation and removal of the printer. And just be faster. But this will come with experience, definitely, in the field.
Of course. And it's very interesting because like at present, even though modular construction is more, I guess, efficient and in some cases more sustainable, we still produce at a site and then ship over, right? There's a big logistics component, but 3D printing potentially can eliminate most of that logistics by really setting up shop in a more local, and then having to move around in a local, I guess, circumference, really. But I think you touched upon a great point where we think about innovation around 3D printing in the future. that it's not only about machinery, it's about the print recipe, to your point, where we have to continue R&D in new materials, not only to just see like how you can build more efficiently or like cost effectively or quickly, but really to also figure out how can it be more sustainable. Can we actually build biodegradable structures? Can we build like recyclable structures? Can we build structures that have perfect insulation, right? So we don't have to so that the printing can be the only process of the entire exterior construction. So I think those are like really interesting, and it's good to understand the dimensions that require R&D and development and investment in for the future. And I think I do want to touch upon what you said in terms of like government support, in terms of local laws and zoning regulations and construction code and all of that. Like we all know policy always lags, right? But it's great to see the push and call out from industry itself to encourage such innovation and development. And hopefully we see more and more players in the field wanting to adopt, if not the entire structure, but like pieces of it in their process, in order to encourage also local governments to be more flexible in their regulations too. Because in the end, this is only going to thrive and scale through public-private collaboration. I do want to be mindful of time, but I do want to wrap up with a piece of advice. So what would your advice be to anyone who wants to get into a field that where you're pushing boundaries, trying to make progress in the world?
Well, I think the advice could be two maybe that come to my mind. One is that definitely big is exciting, but small is much more sustainable. So even if your goal or your kind of like what your aim in mind is to work in architectural size, you have to consider always thinking from smaller side, because smaller means smaller mistakes, smaller investment, but still a very large kind of learning curve that is propedeutic and that really can build up your skills. So with 3D printing, even if you are, the 3D printing with a large machines means that you have to input a lot of materials into the machine. So you have to prepare a lot of materials before. It means that once you extrude it, you have a lot of materials to either move around or kind of like put on the side. And those are costs, real costs. So always start small, and especially when it comes to, for example, natural materials. Just talking about our range of machines, clay machines really allow you for a very long and interesting learning curve towards really playing a role in this field. And then I guess my second piece of advice would be that do not try to imagine where you want to get before you understand the tool. So don't try to imagine what you want to get to print before you start printing, because what I've seen through talking with customers and talking with people interested is that it's really, when people approach 3D printing and they're like, in our company we do bicycle frames, and we want to 3D print bicycle frames. We want to do exactly what we do now, but with the 3D printer. That is not really exciting, right? But I cannot ask them to imagine something different from what they do if they don't know what the tool can do. So allow yourself to really learn the tool and allow yourself to explore the tool before you get an aim for yourself, because you may not be able to imagine it right now. So just allow yourself for some time to really feel comfortable with the tool, understand the possibility, the potential, and then concentrate on what you want to do. There must be a first phase where you are just open and just very curious. You have to approach it with curiosity first instead of a goal in mind.
I love that. We're limiting our own imagination by just trying to solve our production problem through 3D printing. Exactly. But whereas in 3D printing, we can think of crazy forms if we have to. That's such a good point. Well, I mean, Matteo, this was great, sweet and short, but also very insightful. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks to you. It was a pleasure being here.
And that is this week's episode of What's Wrong with the Podcast. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Links can be found in the episode description, and you can also find them on our website, podcast.what'swrongwith.xyz. If you found value in the show, we would appreciate if you could rate us and leave a review, or you can simply tell your friends about us. For more details on our guests, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to join us next week. Thank you for listening.